Lifeboat Live, we have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat, period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck.
Hey guys, what's up? What is up? Today's a little bit different tonight. We're going to be interviewing Tommy, Captain Tommy. Guys, a lot of you guys know some of his story, but I guarantee you don't know it all. There's a lot to his recovery and his journey, what he's been through. He's completely transparent with everybody, and he always has been with us. But he's going to go into a little bit more detail, I think, tonight, and just check out what he has to say here, because I think it can be pretty powerful. Matter of fact, I know it can. People that go through what he has gone through on his journey, just like we all have our journey, he has his too. And I think a lot of people are going to relate, and some of the stuff might even shock some people. But yeah. So, how you doing tonight, Tommy?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I guess you can just jump in. I mean, I don't know how far back you want to go, but I guess where you need to start as far as with all that.
I think I got a handle on it. You can always jump in if something jumps out at you. But I know we got a lot of new people on the boat, and when we started the lifeboat, it was called the Tommy Scoville Show. And the first, 5 or 6 at least. Videos, which were long videos, talked a lot about my past. But when people come to the lifeboat, most of them aren't cruising back to the very first videos. And Mark had talked about this. It seemed like a pretty good idea. So I'm going to move through some of it pretty quick, because some of it is just sort of the same story you hear with a lot of people. I started smoking pot when I was about 12 or 13. I've told the story before, but my older brother, Johnny Scoville, slapped the taste out of my mouth the first time he caught me smoking pot. Like, it was the first time that he had ever truthfully, roughed me up. And unfortunately, he went to college, and I really kind of fell into the life. And from there, I just sort of experimented with absolutely everything I could. The second drug I tried was acid. I think was the second one that I tried was LSD. I grew up in Vermont, and there was a really big Grateful Dead contingent. A lot of people that toured with the Dead. So after any local show, the town would be flooded with doses of acid. And, I tried that, and I just continued to progress. I think the first time I snorted coke, I was probably in 9th or 10th grade. And it was a sort of a double life. I was an athlete. I played a couple of different sports, and, I did all of the musicals. I was super into theater, and did all of these things, but I was always high. I smoked pot every single day for probably, till I was maybe 27. I think you could count on one hand the number of days I didn't smoke pot. The only thing I didn't abuse was alcohol. And then, I went through some stages when, we ended up moving to Houston, Texas. And when I got down there, Coke went from $300 an 8-ball to about $70 for an 8 for 3.5 grams. And I started abusing the heck out of that. And I started running it. I started driving big quantities of drugs from Texas to the Northeast and selling them. And I just sort of fell into this life that, at a really early age, I sort of got into kind of a life of crime. And fortunately, I met a guy that kind of got me out of that, but I continued to do drugs. And throughout this entire time, I was skiing and doing it at a pretty high level. I skied the Pro Mogul Tour. I did some other things, and the level of skiing I was doing, a lot of backflips. You've probably seen some of the pictures if you've ever been over to my Instagram or any place else. There's some videos and some pictures of me doing some stuff on skis, and it was fairly extreme stuff. But I had a lot of injuries. I mean, a lot. And the first time they wrote me a prescription for pain pills, this is going to sound ignorant as hell, but I used to get addicted every single season, because I would spend the entire season on pain meds. And I never put the heroin and pain pill thing together. I know that sounds dumb, but I just honestly didn't understand the whole, my family used to call it growing pains, because I would be in bed for 7 days, just sick as hell at the end of every single ski season. And they honestly thought it was just one of those things that, well, this is what happens. You start to grow or whatever. And I didn't know enough to go get more. To me, I was sick as hell. There was no way around it. I don't know what the hell I had, but I was just really sick. And,
yeah, I think, let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I think a lot of us, like me, my story is a little similar, but it's not exactly, but I can relate because, you said you did it on seasons, right? When I would go through surgeries, I would find myself addicted at the end of a surgery bout with, pain medication. And then I would have to go through that same thing every time I had a surgery. So it's really similar to that. And I didn't even know it was an issue yet. So I can relate for sure.
Yeah, you just get sick. And like I said last night, what really makes withdrawal awful is the fact that you can stop it. When I didn't realize that there was a way to make that pain stop, I just went through it. I'd be sick for 6 or 7 days, and then it would take another, week or two after that to get right, to where I could sleep or everything else. But it was just one of those things that, I truthfully, looking back on it, it seems really stupid, but I had no idea. And I continued to get, more into it. And then as right around, I think 19, I had a pretty good injury. I broke my neck. And when I wasn't paralyzed, anything like that. I was just a broken C6 vertebrae, but they gave me a lot of pain meds. And after the surgery, it was a different doctor, and the second doctor wrote me another huge prescription of pain medication, and I still had the first. And I remember that was like when the light bulb went off, because I ran out of that script and I started to get sick and I started to go through all of that. And I found the pain meds from the previous, doctor, and I ate a handful because of the pain, not because of, the sickness was causing so much pain. I didn't do it as a way. And about 30 minutes after I took them, the light bulb went on. I was like, good Lord, I'm addicted to these things. And from that point on, I was selling anything. I was a guy that sold stock. I sold business opportunities. I worked as a public speaker, but I was just in sales, and I made a lot of money. And I was buying pills. I'm not kidding you, in 1-gallon Ziploc freezer bags. We had a connection at a pharmacy, and I would buy 2,000 Loratab at a time. And I got to the point where I was eating about 14 of these things at a time, chewing them up, washing them down with a beer, and then going to work.
That would actually made it a lot easier for you then. I mean, to really become addicted, because you had the monetary, stuff there to support it. It really wasn't an issue.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And in that line of work, it was like everybody in sales was addicted to opiates. And there's a reason that rock stars all do opiates, because before you go on stage, it knocks out all of the jitters, and you're probably not at your best, but you sure think you are. There's none of that. And I was speaking to pretty good sized crowds. On a small night we'd have 700 or 800 people, and on a good night you'd have 4,000 or 5,000. And to walk out on stage, I mean, the reason they pay those people so much is because no one wants to do it. It's a difficult thing to find public speakers that'll go out. And this wasn't just entertainment. I was asking for $500 at the end of the presentation. So I did them wasted. and I did it for years. And all of the other speakers were doing opiates. So everybody had a connection. Everybody had a crooked doctor or whatever. And then one day I went into a pain specialist, and I had my file from skiing and everything else. And the woman said, "Don't lie to me. What are you doing now? Because I'm sure you're getting it on the street." And I said, "I'm eating about 14 Loratab 10s at a time." And she almost had a heart attack. But there was a new drug that they were just releasing. And she said, "What you need to be on is is Percocet, time released. It's called OxyContin." And I've told this story before. She wrote me a prescription for all of the different sizes, from 5s all the way up to 80s. And she said, "Self titrate. Go home and find your own dose." And I said, "Come again?" She's like, "Just keep eating them until the pain is gone." And there really wasn't any pain. So I came back, and a friend of mine said to me, "Just tell her something ridiculous and see if she buys it." And I went back and said, "I'm eating 12 a day." And she was like, just wrote the script.
That's
And
crazy,
that
man.
lasted. Is that not insane?
Yeah, that's just one of those things that I think, any of us that had been in that life for any length of time eventually got to that kind of a relationship with a doctor. And I think, for people that are on the outside of that, they don't understand, like the pain management doctor didn't even have a nurse. Mine didn't. Walk in with the prescription pad, ask me what I wanted. That's legitimately, It was like that. So, yeah.
Well, when I was skiing, during the season, we had a doctor that would literally just, he would give you a bag of pills and put a sticker on the outside of it like it was a prescription. And I was on, Dilaudid's and Percodans and Percocets, and whatever you needed, they were giving it out, and it was just sort of crazy. But so now I'm at this pain specialist, and not only was I getting that, but I was getting 6 syringes a week, preloaded Demerol. And the thing about Demerol is that Demerol works when you shoot it in the fat, and it doesn't work when you shoot it in the vein. Right? It's literally meant to go into the muscle. It's not a mainline drug unless they formulate it that way. So it did no good slamming it. So I was just continuing. At this point, I hadn't tried a needle, and I did this for a long time until they pulled the rug out. Like one day I went in, and she said to me, "Your insurance company isn't paying anymore." And she said, "I'm not going to stop treating you because you will get violently ill. So, but we're going to have to go to something considerably cheaper." And she said, "Methadone." And, if you've ever been in that game, I was like, "Methadone? That's for junkies. I'm not taking that stuff. That's for, it's for people with a drug problem." She said, "Well, it's a great painkiller." The prescription of that was 310 milligrams a day. And I was selling that off to somebody. It was in pill form, the big, huge 40 milligram wafers. And I was selling that off to another addict who was giving me cash for it. And then one day when I went over there, he didn't have any cash. And I ended up getting some opium, air quotes, which of course was tar heroin. But he was sharp enough to know that if he told me it was tar heroin, I probably wouldn't have taken it. But opium, he said, "This will keep you from getting sick." And so my first exposure to heroin was, first I put it in a Visine bottle and snorted it. And I know Jack is in the audience. He went through the same thing. But I snorted that. Within 4 or 5 days, I was smoking it. And from that point on, it was out of control like you could not believe. The speed at which I went from being a very successful guy that, had a very legitimate job. And I was working with a company called Global Village Market. We were a charity, actually, and gone around the world, and famous people. It was a very cool gig. I worked with Muhammad Ali and Celine Dion and Deion Sanders and Emmett Smith. It was really a lot of cool things. But I was getting ready to go on stage, and you don't put your pants on until you walk out on stage, because you want the creases to look like they're razor blades. You know what I mean? So I had a needle with heroin in it, and I was putting the needle in behind my knee. At that point, it didn't take long for me to blow out veins. I was shooting coke and heroin at the same time, and I blew out my veins so fast that it was a really long process to find a vein. And I'm getting ready to go on stage, and my hand's shaking, so I'm trying to work this. I just got in the door, and I was trying to put it in behind my knee, and the guy that I work for came walking in, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I looked up at him. I said, "Insulin." He said, brown insulin behind your knee. I said, look, he said, he goes, you're on drugs. I said, I've been on drugs since the day you met me. You know, I'd been working for them at that point a really long time. And to make a long story short, not only was I done, but I was done. Like everywhere I went to try to get a job, you know, it's a small little industry. And they all had gotten the memo that I was a heroin addict. And I took a couple of jobs, you know, doing sales in small telemarketing rooms that were just straight scams, and we were just stealing. And even in that, you know, messed up part of my life, I just wasn't comfortable with it. I could always justify what I did because there was always this much truth. There was enough truth to hang on it. And now I'm selling stuff that there was no truth to at all. And I knew I was ripping these people off, and it were big sales. I was taking 10 grand from people. I mean, just scumbag stuff.
That
And
kind of, you know, that kind of trickles into, you know, a lot of what we all experience too. You know, we find that little bit of truth and we hang on to it, and we justify that in our brain, you know.
no question.
That's how we keep doing what we're doing, and that's a high level of what you were doing. You know, I mean, that is an extreme case, I will say, and that's what it is, you know. But I think it's, you know, I think a lot of people that have never been in what we've been doing here or anywhere else wouldn't understand that until you like really put it in those words. And yeah, I mean, anybody can understand a boss coming in, seeing you with a needle in you anywhere, how that would feel. So picture that, anyone that's listening to us, picture that if that was you, and how that had to just really rock your world.
Yeah, and I was living in Salt Lake City at the time, and I remember I had already I started getting out of control. I started stealing to come out. First, I sold off everything I had, and I had a lot. You know, I had acquired many toys and watches and cars, and it took probably 9 or 10 months to go through everything that I had purchased. And I'm talking about doing $1,000 worth of heroin a day. You know, the stuff was very expensive there. And when I ran out, you know, I fronted and got, you know, into debt with every single dealer I could. And when that stopped and they wouldn't front me anymore, I robbed all of them. I would get in the car and just start punching the guy and take his stuff. And then it got to the point where no one would sell to me. So I had to call someone, and it was just, and then one day I robbed the bank. I did as much research as I could about, you know, how the process worked. And I went and robbed my first bank, and I was, I think I got $18,000 or something. And it was enough to keep the boat afloat for a couple of months because I had a lot of bills and things. You know, when you're making really good money, you come up, there's a lot of things you got to pay for, right? Your lifestyle increases, and, you know, you got to come up with 8 grand a month just to pay the bills. And so, you know, a couple of months later, I was broke again. I knocked off another one. And then one day a guy came to the door, and he knocked on the door, and I opened it, and he said to me, you know, he asked me, you know, my name. And I'm like, yeah, can I help you? And he pulled an FBI badge out and flashed it. And he said, all my bosses, everybody I work for says I'm crazy, but I know what you're doing. He's like, and I just want you to know, I'm going to get you. And I went, you're crazy. And I shut the door, and I was married. I walked into the living room and said, pack your stuff, we're leaving. And I mean, I left that house that we were making payments. I mean, this was not a rent. This was my home. And we just filled up a truck. I mean, we left so much stuff there. I left the Harley Davidson there. Like we're out of here. And I came out to Nevada, sort of on the run. And I got a job in a telemarketing office. I got on methadone. I started making a lot of money. I bought a Porsche. Like everything was right back to being normal, and took a nosedive. You know, I seriously, I bought the woman I was married to a Porsche for Mother's Day. And, you know, we were just had a lot of money and life was good again. And it took probably 7 months before I was right back in the thick of it. And then it really got crazy. And I mean, it was crime every day. It was me ripping stuff off. There was no hope at all in my mind of ever going legit again. Like I was a criminal.
Have you ever talked to somebody that had been doing similar stuff? You know, like just anything at that level. Because I think a lot with the monetary thing, a lot of us, that's our downfall. We start succeeding again, and then we just screw up because of it. Life becomes a little bit easier with the monetary thing, and then, you know, it kind of sounds like that's what happened to you there a little bit. But yeah, I didn't know.
I short circuit myself, and yeah, I hear it all the time. Yeah, I think I did a video once where I talk about it. It's super easy to justify, when things are going bad, and you're like, you know what, I got to get high. Life sucks. But for me, it was more of a trap when things were going really good, because there was, the kind of sales I was doing. This isn't a brag, people. This is just sort of what was going on. But to make 30 grand in a month was nothing. That was pretty standard stuff. The commissions are really high, and they pay a lot of money for doing what I did. And, you'd have 10 grand in your pocket, and you would say, you know what, if I just go get high today, it's going to be what, $500. It's nothing. If I go buy $500 worth of dope and then I don't do any, and it would work for about a week. Like I would do it on Monday and I wouldn't do anything on Tuesday. And I'd be like, I got this under control. This is nothing. And then I would do it on Wednesday and I wouldn't do it on Thursday. And then inevitably I would do it 2 or 3 days in a row. And I knew if I did it one more day, so I would stop, and that would work for maybe a week or two. And then it was always that moment where I just went, screw it, screw it. I'm going to go. And as crazy as it sounds, I would just make the decision to become a junkie, because that's literally what I was doing. I was making the decision to get right back into that life.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what a lot of us do,
Yeah.
Guys, it's a decision, it really is. And honestly, you were already ahead of the curve there, understanding that that's what you were doing. You probably knew it when you did it, and wow, that's all I can say to that. I mean, and I think we're tricking our reward part of the brain there a little bit too. And, skipping those days there, and it kind of leads you right back into it. But you're, yes, you most certainly will go straight back to it eventually.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's what always used to freak me out was the fact that, I would come back and I would spend $10 and I could get high. And for the day, I'd be like, man, I remember spending $700. I can get high for $10. But within 2 weeks, I'd be doing 7 grams a day. Like it was that fast. And I'd be smoking it, shooting it, and snorting it. And in Nevada, I was stealing anything. It wasn't even like I was doing huge bank robberies or anything else. I was just, anything. I would get up and I knew that I would have to steal about $1,000 worth of stuff a day that I could sell for 500 or 600 in order to keep the ball rolling. And I stole electronic stuff. I stole meat. I stole tools. Tools were a big one. And I would just walk in the store, a shopping cart, and walk out the door. And I didn't look the part. You know what I mean? Again, what they think the thief looks like. You know what I mean? I'd walk in a nice outfit, and I didn't look like a guy that was getting ready to rob them. I would walk up and down the aisles, just fill a shopping cart and walk straight out the front door. And that's where I first started getting arrested. At this point, I had not ever really been in trouble. Like some stuff when I was younger, but now I was getting arrested a lot. And I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what, I'm going to rob banks again. I was good at that. That was good money. And so I started doing that. I started pulling banks again. And
were you still doing the sales while you were doing all that?
No. Once I got off the rails again, because what happened is the industry took a risk on me. And instead of being a public speaker, which is what I was doing, I was handling the back end sales for all of it. So it's the same thing. Instead of going to the hotels where you set up the big conventions, all of those people that buy for $4.99, I was calling them, and I was running an entire office full of people who were calling them to sell them more stuff. And the money was great, but there was no adrenaline rush. I wasn't walking on stage. It was a completely different thing. And once I blew it again, like they gave me another chance. And once it became obvious, and what happened was I got arrested and couldn't go to work, couldn't bail out. And, everyone was like, where the hell's the boss? And they called New York, which was the corporate. And, my friend Rex at the time was like, Rex called the police station. He knew who I used to be. So he just called and said, you got a guy in jail by the name of, and bailed me out. And he bailed me out and sent me $10,000 FedEx in a FedEx parcel and said, that's your severance pay. I wish you the best of luck. And that
had to be like just devastating. And it probably just pushed you into it even more.
Oh yeah, that was reality roundup right there. That was and what's crazy is I went to jail for the first time I went to prison. I went for just a stupid small robbery. And at the time I was pulling banks. And when I got arrested, it wasn't for that. And I got put away, and all of those banks were just out there unsolved. And when I got back out, I had to get a job. It's about the time I met Jack, and when he and I started partying, it was over. I mean, I was every single day, and it was deep. We were doing a lot of dope, and we were doing a lot of crime, and it was just I was so out of control at that point that it was just amazing. And what's funny is that when I got arrested for for bank robbery and got sent to prison, I did not get arrested for a bank I robbed. I got arrested for a bank somebody else robbed. But when I started getting questioned, basically what he said was, he's like, "You could plead guilty to this today." I said, "I didn't rob that bank. Good luck proving it." He goes, "Oh, I don't think that you robbed this bank." Like, I mean, he wasn't even shy about it. He said, "But if I lock you up, it's going to give me about 14 to 15 months to build a case on all of the banks that you did." He's like, "If there's an open bank case anywhere in the United States, I'm going to try to pin it on you." So I had a deal where if I pled guilty, they couldn't charge me for anything going back 11 years. And I was like, guilty. And I married my attorney, which was kind of jacked. It was my second wife. I married my defense attorney. And I got out of prison and everything was going to be groovy, and we lived together and we had a really good time. Life was pretty good. And one day, as it always happens, like I was wearing a suit. I was working and life was good. I was in sales, and I pulled over to get gas, and the guy that I knew from the previous life walked up to the car and he was like, "Hey man, can you spot me $20?" And he looked and he's like, "Oh my God, it's you." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." Gave him a little money. And amazingly, I didn't do anything that day, but the relapse was already in deep. And then I've told the story before. I went home and I said to him, "How's so-and-so?" I could say his name because he's dead now, but I said, "Lenny, my friend Lenny." I said, "How's Lenny? You ever run into him?" He said, "Yeah." So I went shopping for that shirt at Savers I told you about. I was over looking for some silk shirts. So while I'm over there, I may as well swing by the hood and see how Lenny's doing. And I did relapse that day. I went back 3 or 4 different times. And then obviously the last time I went by, I was like, you know what? I just stay one hit of that. It's gonna, I was paying for it anyway. I was buying him some stuff, which I had done the previous 3 times. Here's $100, get you some dope. And
yeah, I think that when you, I think that's you knew you were already going to relapse the first time you talked to him, right? I mean, am I correct in that? I mean,
here's the thing. In hindsight, looking back, but at the time, I think it really was that battle of the brain. I think the part of my brain that was running my life got me over there for that reason. Like I could have gone to stores that were nowhere near the hood. But I really believed I was strong enough. And then after showing up there 3 or 4 times, and the last 3 times watching him do dope without doing it, that little section on the bottom of my brain said, "You got this under control. What are you worried about? I mean, look, you've been watching him get high and you're not even doing it. Like you can control this, right? You're just going to chip. You're going to get a little chip out of it. You're going to do it on the weekends. You're not going to." And that lasted, I don't know, a couple of months. Actually, it was probably the longest I was ever able to chip, without getting a habit.
And I think a lot of us kind of think that at some point, if you get so far into recovery, you start thinking to yourself, or even right at the beginning, "Hey, I could go back and do that once in a while," or "Hey, this is happening to me, so I'm going to start doing this again." All those kinds of things that kind of creep in, and it does lead us right back down the same road. It's just amazing that you were able to even battle that at all. Most people can't. So yeah.
Yeah, I certainly didn't battle it for long, but and then what happened the second time was I wasn't robbing banks, I wasn't doing anything stupid like that, but a guy came by and said, "Would you be interested in buying and some stolen property?" And I was like, "No, I'm good." And I mean, I was getting high and I had a habit, but I was still under control. I wasn't. But he had probably 50 guns, and I can't remember what he wanted, but it was just ludicrous. It was like $1,300 or something, for the entire thing. And I just thought, good Lord, and I remember telling the judge, it could have been silver, could have been gold. It was just $25,000 or $30,000 worth of stuff that he wanted almost no money for. And it looked like more heroin to me. It had nothing to do with the fact that it was guns, but the next thing you knew, I was a gun runner.
Now, did your second wife know you were doing all this, or was it something you were trying to hide?
No, my second wife knew I was doing this. but and I'll if I'm going to be honest about this, and it's not particularly fun, but if I'm going to be honest about this, probably the same gift of persuasion that I used in sales. I was probably mercy that froze me right then. The bottom line is I was getting over on her. I mean, I was basically leading this girl into a life that, you know, she had no right being in. It was, I mean, I can say a lot of bad things about, you know, the end of our marriage because she did some really ridiculous stuff. But if I had been doing what I was supposed to, there wouldn't have been any of that. It was all me, plain and simple. It's not a pleasant thing to think about, but the truth of the matter is it was all me. And yeah, she knew what was going on, but it was a bit, you know, you sort of drip it on, you know what I mean? It's like, ah, well, I'm getting high and then I'm doing a little bit in the kitchen and, you know, then she's, you know, just watching all of this and it just got to the point where it was normal. You know, it wasn't that, and she was like, wow, that's a lot of money's worth of, you know, worth of stuff for this much money. And it just became about, you know, the financial end of it, because at that point I was doing over $3,000 worth of heroin a week. So this just looked like a way out. And I bought these things, and one day a guy came by and was wanting. So and so said, "Hey, you know what, Tommy? This guy's got cash, and he's looking for a few guns." And he worked for the FBI, and I sold him a couple of Desert Eagles and an AR-15, and I was only looking at about 26 months. And I went to sentencing the day after the San Bernardino shooting. While I was waiting to go to sentencing with a deal on the table, a guy with an AR-15 shoots up all of San Bernardino. And when I went in front of the judge, the first thing he said was like, he said, you're not worried about guns ending up in the hands of the people, like, you know. And I said, with all due respect, I'm not being racist, but if somebody's name was Muhammad, I probably wasn't going to sell him a firearm. I said, and since I bought, you know, since I was selling these guns to the FBI, I guess we're in pretty good shape on that one. You know what I mean? It was, I was fairly safe as far as that goes, but he threw the book at me. He gave me a lot of time, and thank God he did. You know, I mean, I wasn't feeling that at the time. I was feeling like my world came to an end. You know, when I heard 96 months, you know, instead of 26 months, I knew my marriage was over. I knew that was the end of that. And just all of the other things, you know, my dad was not in good health then. And I just thought there's no way he makes it, you know, another 8 years.
Yeah, that's
just no way.
That's a
And
yeah, that's
I got to prison.
yeah.
And I was killing him. I mean, I knew I was in the process of literally killing him. And my mom. I was killing my mom and, you know, my siblings. And it was just, you got to realize that there was never anybody that did anything like this in my family, right? No one's ever been in trouble, much less, I mean, they don't get speeding tickets, you know, they don't do anything. And so, you know, when you get busted for bank robbery and then you get busted for gun running, not what, 5 years later. I mean, it was the fact that they didn't give up and just walk away is incredible. But I think, you know, I got into prison and was right in it. I got to prison, just started doing heroin. And this was really like the lowest point of my life because I didn't have the money to pay for it. You know, now what would have been $100 worth of heroin on the street was worth, you know, close to $1,000 in there. And I had a pretty good habit. So what happened is I would just continue to get high, and I would go and collect money for the people that weren't paying, which basically meant, you know, going in and hurting people. And that was a line that I had never crossed. You know, I had always been able to justify my drug use in that, well, I was only hurting me. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't doing anything that was hurting other people. And when I stole, I always stole from institutions. In my crazy head, that made it okay. I didn't go steal wedding rings. I didn't break into people's homes. I didn't do anything like that. And in my head, that made it okay. Now I was going in and looking at people and beating the hell out of them. And scaring them to death and just being a degenerate, like at the lowest point. And then one day I got stabbed by accident. They sent a guy to go stab. I had recently had a stroke right before prison. Before I had gotten to prison, I had a stroke and I was walking with a cane. And they sent this kid out to go stab the old white guy with a cane. Fortunately, he stabbed me. And that got me thrown into solitary confinement, and solitary because they didn't know who stabbed me and I wasn't willing to tell them. So they didn't know who to separate. You couldn't live with this race because they don't know if this race stabbed you. And you couldn't live with these group because they don't know if that guy, I got thrown in solitary. And in solitary, you're not getting any dope. There's nobody even walking by. Usually you can pass stuff. The guy who's sweeping will pass stuff. And I mean, there's nobody talking to me but cops. And that was the hardest kick in history. They took my cane. I'm alone in a cell. I wasn't allowed to have a cane. So it gave me a lot of time to try to learn to walk, because I held onto the walls, and and it gave me a lot of time to talk to God. And when I landed at the next prison, I started talking to people and was about to fall right back into it. And I went up to there was a black guy at work named Q, and he goes, something on your mind? Because I was looking at him, and to be really honest, I was sizing up whether or not he might be somebody that sold dope. Truthfully, that's pretty much where I was at. And I walked up, I said, hey man, any idea where to score any black? And he's like, no, I could probably get you some sobriety if you're looking to score. And I was like, yeah, score me some sobriety. And it started a conversation, and I haven't done dope since. He took a chance on me. And, as I've said, blacks and whites don't talk in federal prison when they're basically not allowed to hang out. But he was doing life. And his mission in life is to turn people out of prison who have a shot at making it. And he's vicious about it. He's one of the best human beings I ever met in my life. Just plain and simple, just a really good guy. And sorry. And that was the start, And at that point, I
that's hard, man. That's really hard. It, and I think, after talking to you multiple times about this whole stuff, this is a subject that I can tell that you get a little bit, emotional about, because this is probably the moment that you started to decide, hey, I'm done with all this, but yeah,
it was, when I look back on it, that was the period where I was 45 years old, and I had never owned any single thing that I had done in my whole life. And I had never had anybody tell me that I had to. There was nobody in recovery that ever said to me, man, if you don't admit the things that you've done, if you don't really come to grips with everything that you have done. And at first, I mean, there was a period where I thought maybe this dude was just like really sadistic. Like maybe he just dug watching people go through this. But it was the first time, I had read the 12 steps and things like that, but this was a guy that was in my face about it. Like I've said before, when he said, write down your faults, I did. And, there was like four or five things written down on this piece of paper. And I came back like 10 minutes later and I handed it to him, and he goes, what the F is this? I was like, those are my faults. And he's like, no, brother, this is going to take days. He's like, I want to know your faults. You know what I mean? What have you done? And
he wanted the big stuff. He wanted the stuff that meant something.
Yeah. He wanted me to not have anything that I didn't own. He didn't want me to then get sober and go, oh man, when I did that. So by the time I was really, and look, I hadn't used at that point in probably a year, but I wasn't sober. You understand? I was chemical free, but I was messed up in the head, and I was not even close to living my best life. And he wanted me to be sober. And at that point, truthfully owning every single thing that I had ever done. I remember crying, like just sitting in this cell and just going through it, and, coming to grips. I don't know how many times I called my dad and just said, I'm so freaking sorry. And then they came to visit me one day, and the whole time I was down, they came once, or no, they came twice. But I remember my dad hugging me and he said, I'm not worried about you. And I said, why? Because you think I can take care of myself in here? He goes, no, no, no. I mean, in the big picture, I'm not worried about you. And I said, why? And he just said, because I've never seen you like this. You know, he's like, I don't know this person. I like him, you know, but he,
That
you
had
know, like
to.
you were,
I mean, that had to be big for you right there. That.
yeah, it was huge. It really was. That was definitely one of those defining moments. But it was kind of double edged because I remember being in there and thinking, man, this is awesome. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he realizes I've changed and this and that. And then I got back to the cell and I, you know, was telling my friend about it, and he said, you know, the other side of this equation, right? I said, what? He goes, it means that you never BS them at all. Like he didn't believe anything you said for the last 40 years. And that really, like that moment of realizing that all of those times that I thought, you know, I was putting it over on him, he was giving me money because he knew I was sick, but he wasn't believing any of it. And that, you know, I immediately got back on the phone. You know, I called them. I don't think they were an hour away from the prison, and I just said, "I'm so sorry for every lie I ever told. You know, just so sorry for the person that I was." And
Yeah, yeah, Tommy, and it's, you know, and I think that at that second, in that moment, you know, knowing all that, that's a big rush at once. And you know, I know you've had a lot of time to think about this after, obviously, and but I think, you know, for most of us, and what I would say, you know, grab a hold of the beginning of that. You know, he was still, it was your dad. He was loving you. You know, and he knew, and that had to, you know, even though it made you feel like, man, I did all those things to him and my mom and whatever, but at the end of it, he knew that you were okay now, and I
yeah,
think that had to really, you know, it had to boost your confidence at least. I would think.
well, the beautiful thing is that answered prayer was that uh, he didn't die while I was in prison. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I would have lived with that. But I got out, and my dad held on until I got out. I mean, we had this conversation. He said he was fighting to stay alive. He really was. And the last day that I talked to him, you know, we talked twice on the phone, and he said to me, "This is the last time we're going to talk." And I said, you know, uh, pardon me, but I said, don't say shit like that. You know what I mean? I said, you're going to be here tomorrow. He said, no, I'm not. He's like, this is it. You know, and he knew he died that night. And, but yeah, there was, that was really that one was, you know, when it was all said and done, I was at peace. And I know that he was, which was really cool. And, yeah, I hear every day, man. I hear every day that, you know, I just saw an actor talking about it yesterday on the news that said, I don't care what it is going on in your life, you can't do it for other people. It has to be all about you. You know, I beg to differ. I really do. I mean, yeah, you got to want to get sober, but the reasons that drive you to get sober should be, you know, the look in other people's eyes and the love and you know, the what you owe the people that you treated like crap for your entire life. Because to me, I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm the only one, but for me, that is such a driving force. That is such a motivator. You know what I mean? It really is.
Well, people that
Because
love us
especially when
do
you
that,
first
right?
start to quit.
You know, ain't
Yeah.
that? I mean, when we're doing it for them, but on the back end of that, you're actually you are kind of doing it for yourself because you want to make them feel good, and that makes you feel
Yeah.
good. So you're what I like to say is you're doing it for everybody. It's not,
No
you
question.
know what I mean? It's not like you're being
Yeah.
selfish with it, and it's not like you're being not considerate to your family because I would venture to say, and I think you would probably agree, not about 90% of us that get better are doing it because we love people in our life, and we know that those people will not be there if we continue. And I do think that that's where a lot of that comes from, and you know, so yes, I'm on 100%
Uh,
agreement with we can do this for other people. You
I
know,
think that I think that it starts the process because in the beginning, you know, the prospect of doing it for me, I hated me. You know what I mean? There was nothing about me that I respected. There was nothing about me that I liked. I was ashamed of every single part of me. So, you know, my motivation, especially in the beginning, was the people that I loved seemed blameless and you know above reproach, and I wanted to be there. You know what I mean? I wanted to now I mean, I definitely stay sober for me. I love the fact that everyone in my life is happier about it, but I love who I am today. And that's probably the coolest part of this whole process is that, you know, I don't know that we think about this a lot when we're in the life, but because you just get so caught up in the cycle of high, so, you know, stealing high, stealing or whatever, you know, sick high, but you get caught in that on that treadmill, on that Groundhog Day we were talking about. And while I was there, these aren't the kind of thoughts that I had. But I don't think that there was a time in my life that I liked myself, and I do today. I really do. I mean, I've still got a ton of faults. You know, I'm not the most patient person in the world. You've seen that, Mark. These people don't see it because the cameras aren't running when I'm going, damn it, this thing won't work. You know what I mean? But I'm not the most patient person in the world. There's some things I need to work on, but for the most
Well,
part, you know what I
you know
mean?
what I
I
say
like
to
who I
that,
am.
Tommy? You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. And I know that that's
Yeah.
another thing. You know, we didn't get addicted overnight. We didn't do all those things overnight. So what makes us think we can fix it overnight? It's just not. It doesn't work that way. And to see you, because I never knew you before your addiction. You know, and I never knew you before you were in recovery. You know, that kind of a thing. So those people that are really close to you got to see both of that, and they can, you know, I guarantee you. I mean, I remember when you went and visited in Florida with your aunt, how proud she was of you, and all that kind of stuff. That has to make you.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes it worth it. Any of that stuff
No.
that you did prior to can be just, you know, when your family comes back and says those things to you, it really does make it worth it. It really does. Even though it's not ever going to be easy for us, because it won't. But
You know what when Jack and I get together, it's a really cool thing because neither of us were worth a crap. You know what I mean? Like we were two really awful human beings. I mean, Jack could tell you some stories that in hindsight are really funny. But you know, at the time, it was just stealing. I swear to you, once I stole a side of beef. I'm not even kidding you. I ran out of a store with what had to be 60 or 70 pounds. It's just like a, you know what I mean, where they cut a side of beef in half. And we just walked out the front door hugging it like this. And when I tell the story, Jack and I mean, tears will run down our face because looking back on it, it's funny as hell. But at the time, that's just desperation. Like you need it so bad that, you know, the dope man was like, man, if you get a lot of meat, I would swap it straight out. I'm like, pull over at that store. They sell them in big quantities. I would have killed the person at the door. Like I literally would have killed the person if he tried to stop me because that's just where I was at. But when I get together with Jack, you know, he's got a good job now and he's married and his life is good. And, you know, I'm never been happier and I got a mission in life. And, but, you know, you say that, you know, you didn't know me before and nobody does. I mean, I cut everybody out of my life that I was friends with before except Jack. And, it's fun when the two of us get together because of that perspective. But all of my friends now, I don't associate with people that get high. You know what I mean? Unless they happen to step onto the boat with a buzz and I'm trying to work with them or whatever. But no, at this point,
well,
you know, they
for us, you know, listening to you and doing the channel here, it's amazing to me to think that, you know, even though I wasn't there before and seen you doing all those things, to hear you tell your story and then to see what you're doing today is just, it's mind boggling. It really is. And and let me say this, I'm not trying to be selfish or boast my own horn here or anything like that, but I feel the same way about myself. And anybody that gets to the level of being able to understand what we understand and we've done really bad things, is what I'm trying to say. And now we're doing really good things. And it really does, it's a hard thing for people that have never been through that kind of a walk to even understand. But, you know, and I think this is just a small insight too, guys. There's a lot more that we just can't, you know, you can't go in. It's just too long, you know, and we may do it. We'll probably in the future. Yeah. We're getting close to that time. So yeah. And you know, so if you want to just go ahead and kind of, I don't know, maybe give some sort of a summary or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, sort of wrap it up.
Yeah.
You know what? To wrap it up, you know, what you just said is key. I was talking to someone today and I said, if you could go back 10 years and say to me, you know, you're going to have buying and selling watches, and you're going to have you're going to have a YouTube channel that isn't about making money. It's just going to be helping to try to get people off of drugs. There'll be no angle. There's nothing. It's literally just sort of a mission to try to help people get sober. And you will have not have gotten high in 7 years. I would have fallen down laughing. I really would have. I mean, it would have been the funniest concept in the entire world. And I swear to you, I said this verbatim, not 7 hours ago. I said this to somebody. But it's, I think if we ever do another one of these, I'd love to just take you from the day that I walked out of the joint, the day I walked out of prison to here. The prison stories, I could sit and do prison talk and tell you just horrific stories that would keep you up at night. But I do everything within my power to forget all of that crap. I really do. Even though I was in the process of getting sober, the guy that went to prison walked it. Yeah, a piece of shit walked into prison and I walked out. And that's really the way I look at it. And I love leaving all of that behind me. And I apologize for the language today, people, but there's no other way to say that.
Really, well, yeah, I wouldn't apologize for that at all. I mean, because that's just real life, guys. I mean, we try to keep the vulgarity off the channel, and it's really not vulgar when you say it like you said it. But at the same time, guys, you gotta understand that's. I mean, come on.
It really is exactly what happened, though. I mean, the guy that walked into there was just. I mean, I walked out of that a different person, and I think that's probably what I'm most proud of is the fact that that place changed me, and for the better, because it's not an easy thing to go into that environment and not walk out way worse off than you walked in, and I put up with a lot of crap because of the life that I decided to live in there, and
Well, I think I can speak for the rest of the crew on this, and anybody else listening and watching. We're happy that this is where you're at now, because this is one of those things that you have made a difference definitely in my life and anybody else that listens to you that is here that is doing any of those things, and none of that would have been the deal if you hadn't went through everything you went through. And I know that sounds crappy or whatever, but it's the truth. It really is. We all go through the walk, and from my perspective, I think we could all say thank you to you for being willing to just do what you're doing. And honestly, I know I'm proud to know you, and it's just what it is. So,
well, and yeah, what's a great summary? I'll just wrap it up like this. The best thing that ever happened to me was launching this boat. It really was. And at first, it was a greedy thing. It wasn't about money. It was about staying sober. And I really believed that if I was every night live, that I couldn't relapse. Like I really believed that was just going to be the most rock solid way to stay sober, was to talk about sobriety every day. And it would keep me from having to go and do all of the meetings and stuff that I hated, that just didn't work for me in the past. And but what you people have done with the lifeboat is what makes this thing amazing, for real. It took on a life of its own about the day I got this hat. Like I honestly can track it back to that day. And from that day forward, that was right around the time we went live. And from the day that we stopped recording videos, which was, that was your idea, Mark. And it was a great one because the channel just took on a life of its own. And you people are so amazing. You do so much every single day to keep me sober, and to keep me happy and to keep me doing what I'm doing. And it's a labor of love. I swear to you it is. It's a labor of love. And I'll be here tomorrow night, I promise you, and the next night and the next night. And I'm going to be sober, and we're going to be fighting the good fight. Thanks for listening to me, man. I appreciate it. Between now and tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would echo everything you just said. This has changed me in ways that I didn't think were still... It's changed me in ways I didn't think I still needed to change in. And honestly, because when you're in, I know Tommy was in prison for, a little over 6 years. I'm close to 7, I think. And, that is immediate, like, bam, you don't get nothing. You're going through whatever you're going through chemically anyway, you're going to lose it, right? But for me, long-term recovery, when you get so far down the road, you kind of forget that you still need to learn things to help you. And this is what this is done for me a lot. And you said it earlier, you know, helping people here. That is our sobriety right now, at least for me.
No question.
That is really what puts me up to that point where I'm confident in saying the things that I say. You know, and again, I would circle right back around to my family, and I know you do the same thing. You know, we're doing it for that, but yeah. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and end it like we typically end it, I can't do it. You do it.
Sure. Between now and tomorrow night, when we all get back together, you know what? Reach out there and try to save somebody. It is absolutely the thing to do. I am Captain Tommy Scoble. Thanks for listening.